want to talk to you tonight about is just to give you some examples of what we learned. We did a wood pellet logistics marketing study for the Saskatchewan Forest Centre, looking at the opportunities for utilizing residue from Saskatchewan forests for the production of wood pellets. And while we were in Austria, Germany, and Sweden, we also had an opportunity to take a look at a lot of their renewable energy projects and smaller projects. And this particular slide helps you appreciate the European situation and the approach that they've taken to renewable energy, and it's their 2020, which is really a 20% increase in energy efficiency, a 20% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, and a 20% increase in production of renewable energy by 2020. And all of the European countries are involved in this initiative, and there are certain obligations that they're supposed to meet. But what I want to do is just walk through a few examples. Some of these are large, some of these are small. We give you a little bit of an appreciation of renewable energy and how it's being produced in Austria, Germany, and Sweden. The biogas plant in Osdorf in Austria again. This plant was built and owned by 3 farmers. There's apparently about 300 to 400 such plants in Austria. This particular one is producing 500 kilowatts of electricity and 500 kilowatts of heat. And the heat is used by their own farms, and most of the electricity is sold into the grid with the Austrian feed-in tariffs. And at the time that we were there, what I could understand, and sometimes we missed a bit in translation, is that they were getting 14.5 euro cents per kilowatt for the electricity that was fed into the grid. And the feedstock in this case is corn silage and some manure mixed in with it. That's just an example of the feedstock. And this is an example of the conversion plant. I'm missing a couple pictures here from the plant itself. This next example is a very neat one in Munich, Germany. It's a state-of-the-art pellet heating system that has been put in to replace an old oil heating system in 2 apartment blocks. This old gentleman here, there's 2 old gentlemen. The one on the right, that's me on the left, and the one on the right, the fella came out in his slippers. You know, first impressions you think, well, it's maybe the janitor, until he got started talking about how he had installed this pellet heating system in this apartment block. And the fellow was an engineer with the former nuclear program. So he designed the full plant and everything. But the heating system, this particular heating system works on 2 boilers of 300 kilowatts each. And the total size of the heated apartments amounts to 7,500 square meters, and 250 people live in the apartments. What they did was they took an underground bicycle storage garage. They converted it into a pellet storage. The pellets are all delivered in bulk, and this is where the pellets are delivered through these pipes down into the storage. This is the opening to the boiler. They have to remove the ash every once in a while. And it's also, most of these plants are fairly sophisticated, and they can tell if anything's going wrong in them. But this was a neat example of how these people were saving about €50,000 a year at that point, converting from oil to pellets. So there's a lot of subsidies involved in this discussion. The next example is a pellet plant it's in Sweden, located adjacent to a forest mill. This is typical of the pellet production plants in Europe. This plant is a very large one by European standards. This plant produces 170,000 tons a year. And I'm just going to walk through. This is them loading the forest residue, this is what we would call sawdust, into the plant. This particular plant runs on 2 lines. It has 3 mills per line, and each of the mills puts out 5 ton per hour, so you're looking at about, what's that, 6 times 5 is 30 ton an hour in this particular plant. It was quite sophisticated. The pellets are put out in bags or in bulk. In this case, there was they put out 65,000 ton in bulk and 35,000 in bags, and 70,000 tons went to electricity. The next example is one. This is a very interesting one. This is a place, and I can never pronounce it. I call it Laxå, but there is a different. It's in Sweden, and it's a community that has dedicated itself to running on renewable energy. This particular energy plant runs on forestry chips coming from the final logging or thinning of an area of the forest, with the tree drops and branches collected into large piles, which are then covered in order to dry, and then the material is chipped before going into the plant. This plant produces, the population of the area is about 70,000 people, and this plant produces over 95% of the district heating and electricity. The previous slide there showed the conveyor going up to the plant, and you can see it's pretty rough-looking stuff. It uses a combination of chips. These big boilers are what I call pretty robust. They can take pretty good stuff. We saw a plant that was running on chicken manure and chips, so it's just an example of the size of this plant. That truck down there was fairly small. And that's the control center for the plant. So they control it all by computer. The farmers were paid on the basis of the actual energy of the material that they were bringing in. So what they did, they were measuring the energy content, the moisture content. They would take material up to 55–60% moisture, but they preferred it around 50% moisture. All these slides do is they give you an indication of how Europe felt at that time, this was February, March of 2008, how this was before the recession, and I don't know what the situation is now. They had sort of projected out how much of their renewable energy was going to come from each source, and biomass was a big part of that. You're taking on biomass, which is the brown piece, biogas waste for heat, biomass, biogas, bio waste for electricity, and it's this big section in here. So biomass is a very big piece of that.